Welcome back to KCDC. We have brand new polling on President Trump's handling of Russia following his summit with Vladimir Putin. An NBC News Wall Street Journal poll released tonight shows that just 26% of registered voters approve of the president's handling of the U.S.-Russia relationship. 51% say they disapprove. And one issue that received bipartisan outrage was the president's consideration of a plan that would have allowed the Kremlin to question U.S. officials in exchange for making the 12 Russians recently indicted by Robert Mueller available for questioning by the U.S. After leaving the question open, the White House now says the president disagrees with that. One American interest to Moscow is former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul.
Here's where it gets scary. There's something called Interpol, where they can go around in third countries and stop people like me. Mr. Browder, his book is called Red Notice, because that's what you put in the Interpol system. And he has been harassed for years by the Russian government because they use the Interpol service for political purposes.
Joining me now is Bill Browder, who we were just talking to about this time last Sunday, just hours before Vladimir Putin called him out by name during his news conference with President Trump. Mr. Browder, it's great to have you back. Can I just ask you, what was going through your head when you watched that news conference?
Well, while the rest of the world was shocked that Putin was bringing up my name, he's been bringing it up since 2012, since the Magnitsky Act was passed in 2012, which was named after my murdered Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, and it sanctions human rights violators in Russia, including very close cronies of Vladimir Putin. And so, from my perspective, it was just more of the same. In fact, I'd even thought about tweeting out before the summit, I wonder if Putin is going to bring up my name, but I thought that might be a little bit too self-centered. Turns out not.
Apparently not, indeed. What was your take on what we saw unfold over the course of the past week? I mean, as somebody who has interacted with the Russian government in one way or the other for a long time, I mean, did the president get taken for a ride? What happened?
Well, I think he was woefully unprepared. He probably didn't know anything about me, Sergei Magnitsky, or any of that type of stuff, and so he probably didn't have any idea how unbelievably evil, and even considering Putin's indecent proposal of swapping me and others for a bunch of Russians was. I think that's my take on Donald Trump's situation. He just didn't do his homework. But the fact that it took him 3 days to basically reject Vladimir Putin's proposal is wholly unacceptable. It took everybody else about 12 seconds to reject that proposal, and it shouldn't have taken him 3 days.
And what's your take on, some of what we have seen out of the meeting, the fact that Putin is now apparently scheduled to come here to the United States?
Well, last Sunday when I was on your show, one of my main points before the summit was that there shouldn't have been a summit in Helsinki in the first place. Vladimir Putin is a malign influence on the world. He's been redrawing the borders by invading Ukraine. He's been bombing innocent women and children in Syria. He's been cheating in the Olympics and meddling in various elections. This is a guy who needs to be contained, not engaged. And so there shouldn't have been a first summit. And there absolutely should not be. We shouldn't be dignifying Vladimir Putin with a state visit to Washington. That makes no sense at all.
There was clearly quite a bit of discomfort in the Congress with how this all played out over the course of the past week, although there were some mixed results as to exactly how aggressively the Senate was willing to push back on various pieces of this. What is it that Congress could do that would actually hit Putin in a way that would really make a difference to him? Is there anything they can do?
Well, there is something that they have done and the Trump administration has done, which is going after the richest oligarchs in Russia and sanctioning their assets. And that was done by the Trump administration on April 6th, where they added 7 of the richest Russian oligarchs to the sanctions list. And it was an absolute neutron bomb going off over Moscow. And so there's a big schizophrenia going on right now in terms of the Trump administration and their policy towards Russia and Trump's own personal words about Vladimir Putin. The Trump administration has been tough or tougher than the Obama administration on Russia. The sanctions are in place. There's offensive weapons going to Ukraine. There's absolutely devastating consequences to Russian mercenaries in Syria who do the wrong thing. what's strange and distasteful is this unbelievable bonhomie or buddy-buddy stuff going on between Trump and Vladimir Putin, where it effectively legitimizes Vladimir Putin as a person, which should not be done by the most powerful person in the free world.
Bill Browder, thank you very much for your time tonight, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Phil and Yamiche, I want to kind of get your take and your latest reporting on where things stand with this potential summit for the fall. Because, I mean, as much as we talked about, Dan Coats, his position, what he said that could hurt his future, he had no idea as a director of national intelligence that this meeting was coming down the pike. It seems like that, again, is another example of the administration acting alone without necessarily mentioning it to the other pieces of the government.
Yeah, it's more like the president acting largely alone. The way this meeting announcement came about Thursday was earlier in the week, President Trump and President Putin discussed the likelihood of having additional meetings, that they would get together again, and I think that they even said so publicly. But President Trump woke up Thursday morning. He was upset with the news media coverage of his Helsinki summit, and he called John Bolton, his national security advisor, with an order saying, get this summit scheduled, invite Putin to Moscow, make it happen. And within a few hours, it did happen. And Sarah Sanders, the press secretary, announced it over Twitter, actually during the Dan Coats interview with Andrea Mitchell, that Putin was being invited to Washington.
Yeah, Michael Schmidt, how does this play into the Mueller investigation, if at all? I mean, one of the final questions of that news conference was, to Putin and saying, hey, do you have something on this president? Is that a factor here?
Well, the other thing that they raised was this idea of Mueller's investigators going over there to present the evidence or to learn, to sort of tell them what they had found about the Russians. I'm not sure that really changes anything. The thing about the Putin meeting that I find funny is that if Coats had a problem, Coats said he thought it was unusual that the foreign minister and the ambassador had met with Trump in the Oval Office in May, and now you have Putin coming to the White House. Now, given all the things that have come out after that, you kind of wonder what Coats will do or say between now and the summit. Will he simply just allow it to happen, or will he speak up again the way he did? He already tried to backtrack on what he said at the end of the week.
Yeah, that would be pretty.
I think President Trump is also, in some ways, very much he's very much digging in his heels. He doesn't like the coverage, but he wants to go it alone. He wants to drive this train, and as a result, if he wants to bring Putin to the White House, he's going to do that. Dan Coats releasing a statement basically saying, I'm sorry if you took this the wrong way, and I don't want to disrespect you, kind of tells you that President Trump is leading this train and that people are very much trying to stay in his good graces in some ways, even though Dan Coats is saying he felt led to correct the president when he initially said that he didn't know if Russia meddled in the election. Dan Coats is still walking even that back a little bit and saying, hey, at the end of the day, this interview might have looked bad, and I want to make sure that you know that I'm on your side.
Yeah, I'm not sure he had any other choice in that particular matter.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.